involved, but also that there's not hydrogen involved. So those are kind of the requirements for us in order to be able to name molecular compounds in this certain way. So any compound that does not have a metal or ammonium ion in its formula is molecular. Now the format for naming binary molecular compounds not containing hydrogen looks like this. We have a prefix plus our first element and that's followed by the prefix plus our second element plus the ending I. So this is the basic formula of how we're going to be naming binary molecular compounds. So what we mean by these prefixes is we need to look at the number of atoms of each element, and these prefixes communicate how many atoms of those elements are in the compound. Now, we use special prefixes, which you'll be familiar with, starting with 1, which is mono, 2 is di, 3 is tri, 4 is tetra, 5 is penta, 6 is hexa, 7 hepta, so these are the prefixes that we use according to the number. So let's take a look at an example in order to see how we use this formula. Alright, so let's start with this one. We want to figure out what is this molecular compound called. We know it consists of 2 nonmetals, so we know this is a molecular compound, but we need to be able to name this. Well, we need to look first at this formula that we've written down. So we need first, in our first element, the prefix plus that first element. Now first element is nitrogen. Now we need a prefix for, well, how many nitrogen atoms are in this compound? Well, according to the subscript, we have 2. So our prefix is going to be di. So we have di, the element is called nitrogen. And then we go to the next part. Well, prefix plus our second element, plus an ending in I. Well, the second element is oxygen, and according to the subscript, well, there's a lack of a subscript, so we assume just 1. So we have dinitrogen, and if there's 1 oxygen, 1 is mono. Now we're not going to write fully oxygen, because notice that we need to use this ending, I. So we have dinitrogen monoxide. So this is the name of this compound, dinitrogen monoxide. So let's take a look at another example. So here we have another molecular compound. We have phosphorus and bromine, which are both, again, nonmetals, so we know this is a molecular compound. So let's start using our formula. So we need our prefix plus our first element. Our first element is phosphorus. There's only 1 of them. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting, is that we need a prefix for our first element. The first element, there's only 1 atom involved in this molecule, but we're not going to start with mono. So if the first element, if there's only 1 of them, we don't bother putting mono. We'll just write phosphorus. The only time we write a prefix is if there's more than 1. Because there's only 1 of our first element, then we won't bother writing mono. So instead, we just write phosphorus. And we take a look at our second element, is bromine. There are 3 of them, so we need a prefix that fits with 3, which is tri.